Yeah, I always ask what are they letting me talk about, right? That's the big question that we should always look to as investigators. The dog that doesn't bark. What dog isn't barking and why isn't the dog? You know, for people who never read that Sherlock Holmes story, they saw the expression comes in from they're trying to figure out who broke in and who was an intruder. And then they ask, well, did the dog bark? The dog didn't bark. Oh, that's how you knew it was an inside job,
Yep.
right? So you're always thinking, what dog isn't barking?
Now, right now, it appears, my friends, the media is reporting that Trump is reeling from the accusations about Epstein and that his aides and allies are going to keep silent on the matter. But it is interesting because while this is currently going on, Deep State's James Clapper has lawyered up Barack Obama directly addressing claims that he committed treason in a strike force. The split is massive. This country is facing something tremendous, from a declining birth rate and now an all-time rock bottom polling for Democrats and a split in the MAGA base. What comes next? Honestly, we don't know. It's a bit chaotic, to say the least. While many in this country are predicting some kind of civil war, where do we go as a nation when the highest factions of power, the highest echelon of power in the Democrat and Republican side, are accusing each other of treason against these United States? With Democrats currently polling at rock bottom numbers, I don't know that Donald Trump needs to do anything other than make sure people have food on their tables. But it's tough because the Epstein story is not going to go away. It's not going to go away, and it appears that Trump believes his name may be falsely included in the documents based on the current mainstream reporting. So there it is, my friends. The question I have for you as we get into this interview and we break down what's currently going on. The current reporting right now is that the Epstein files contain unverified hearsay, nothing that could prove or be probable cause for an investigation into Trump, but makes it seem like Trump may have been involved with Epstein in rather disturbing ways. Now, most people, I think, want to see the files and know for sure. But with Democrats now in just unison demanding the release of these files, and with Trump claiming it's a Democrat hoax, perhaps there is something Trump knows that we don't. The reporting is that Pam Bondi told Trump his name is in the files. All of a sudden, Trump says, we don't want the files released. Trump then says it's all a Democrat hoax. Could it be that Trump is responding to information we don't have, that unverified hearsay included in these documents will smear Trump as somehow involved in the Epstein trafficking ring? Again, nothing that could actually criminally implicate him, but enough to damage his reputation in rather disturbing ways. Trump sees this and says, they're lying. The Democrats under Obama put this information there as a time bomb against me. Now, without the American people knowing anything about this, Trump comes out and says, it's a hoax, it's a Democrat hoax, making him look worse. I don't know for sure. But I'm curious to ask Mike Cernovich. He's the guy who cracked this story open. He's been talking about it quite a bit. We're gonna bring him in now. Let's boot it up. See if we can get it all working here and get the camera rolling and bring in Mike. All right, we got Mike Cernovich here. Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Doing well, brother. Doing well.
Right on. So we got a lot going on with this. We're looking at record low approval for Democrats. We're looking at reports of the MAGA base splitting. Gen Z maybe is upset with Trump. Maybe it's because Trump's not far right enough, but it does look like there's some tumult. You've got Trump being accused by the Democrats, the corporate press, of being in the Epstein files. Meanwhile, you've got the Trump admin basically accusing Barack Obama of treason. The two highest echelons of power, the Democrat-Republican side, accusing each other of high crimes. And so a lot to go through. But let me start here. Some of the reports that have come out have said that Pam Bondi has told Trump he's in the files. They say that there's unverified hearsay in them that may paint Trump in a negative light, and he doesn't want these files released. Trump's gone on to say that this is all one big Democrat hoax, insinuating that there is negative information about him in those files. I'm curious what your thoughts are on Trump's positioning in these files and what it means.
We were told all this in February. Back when we were at Shelley's. It's weird that the Wall Street Journal is reporting this as some kind of exclusive news. Anybody who was there, and you should have been there, will tell you that. So that's being repackaged as something that it's not. Everyone was told, oh, here's the black book. That's what that was for people who are, I forget how old I am. For people who are younger, before you had an iPhone, you kept a book, a black book, and you would write down everybody's numbers in there, from business associates to people you knew. It's not some weird, mysterious thing. Ivanka's a bunch of phone numbers were in there of random people, and that somehow spins out into Trump. Trump is in the Epstein files, and he really doesn't want him out. I just don't think Trump was ever really briefed on the Epstein stuff. Anybody who was there's a big tension right now in like the MAGA base, and that is Trump's first term was not good. It was objectively like not good. People love to dig up my old tweets from that era, like they got me and they're embarrassing me, and I go, oh no, I stand behind. I stand behind all of those, and I was vindicated. It took a while to be because during Trump's first term, I said, why doesn't his director of intelligence release all the Russiagate files?
Yep.
So Tulsi Gabbard does that in 2025, and this isn't shade on Tulsi. Tulsi's great, but then people are like, yeah, sick, based. Oh, great. So when you were yelling at me 8 years ago to trust a plan, and I'm a never Trumper and you hate me, things that I wanted done are done 8 years later. You're like, wow, freaking off. This is all basic stuff that should have been done.
It looks like, the media is saying, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Mediaite or Axios, that Trump, actually everybody's saying this, Trump launched the attack against Obama as a way to distract from the Epstein files. Why didn't the Trump admin dump this stuff in the first term? Why are they doing it now?
Well, Tulsi, again, that's where knowing how the moves work better is the fundamental understanding of Trump is Trump is about Trump. So you have to find a way to make things about Trump in a good way. The neocons are trying to force out Tulsi. Remember a couple of weeks ago, the neocons almost had her out. They said she was a spy. She was leaking information. They somehow convinced Hegseth to fire 2 or 3 people very loyal to him, a choice that he absolutely regrets. You got to remember the neocons were trying to push out Hegseth and Tulsi. So then Tulsi found a way. In Trump world, you got to prove your worth, man. And proving your worth is how you make Trump look good. And, I've had talks to other people. If you've been in the military or on a team, this is not like an insulting thing to say. Yeah. Protect the quarterback. Trump's the quarterback. That's just if you're a lineman, what do? You protect the quarterback. That's the way it goes. If you're in the military and you get yelled at, you get your butt chewed out. Okay, you just got your butt chewed out. Go talk to your wife and friends about it. Go wind down. Not a big deal. So Tulsi had to earn her keep, so to speak, by releasing this stuff. Trump has always been obsessed about Russiagate, which he should be. So the timing of that isn't related to the Epstein files at all.
On the files, Trump has said it's a Democrat hoax, and with the report that Bondi told him his name's appearing in it, and there's unverified hearsay, it sounds like she did, and then Trump looked at it and was like, "This is not real." Then truth's out. It's a hoax. But without the context that his name appeared in it, it sounds like he's saying Epstein did nothing wrong.
Yeah, it's been handled very poorly. There's the narrative which Trump is losing, and he's losing it badly, especially amongst Zoomers and the comedian podcaster circuit, which people can say what they will about it, but that helps. In close elections, everything helps, and it's not being dismissive of anybody like that is bad. The Nelk boys are taking heat. Tim Dillon sounds like he's upset, and maybe I don't consider these people to be serious political thinkers or political philosophers, but they undeniably have an energy about them, an aura that when you're in a close election, you want those guys, or you want to be on the same side of them.
They reach normies.
Seems pretty obvious.
They reach regular people.
Yeah, so Trump is losing the narrative war badly. As someone who is familiar with these issues, like I know for a fact neither Thomas Massie nor Pam Bondi has ever said, let's call in the people who have investigated the Epstein matter and get a briefing from them. This has just not happened. This is why a lot of people don't understand. I know you like Massie. I know a lot of people like Massie. but I've been talking about Epstein since 2017. Alex Jones was talking about it 10 years before that. Jessica House and Habit has done detailed reporting on Epstein for years. There's none of these people, nobody from Massey's office, even when I was trying to get him to, or Rand Paul's office, has said, hey man, what is this Epstein thing that all you people have been talking about since it's never happened? And then they're like, oh, the Epstein files, and here's Massey with the picture of a binder. It's like, well, you don't even know what this is about. And the same thing is true with Pam Bondi. She doesn't know what it's about. She's got 10,000 things to worry about, dude.
Yeah.
Every day there's terrorist attacks planned on everything. So what you have to do is, if you really cared, you would have people like me who, I have time to go on a side quest, right? There are times where weeks at a time, people go, oh, Cerno's really like fallen off. What happened to him? You know, he's not relevant anymore. And then all of a sudden I come out and everybody's like, oh, wow. It's like, yeah, because I have the leisure to just say, you know what I'm going to think about for the next 8 weeks? It's just some weird issue.
Well, this is funny because I remember we had this debate with Ian. I talked to you about it. For those that watch Timcast IRL, he said that he was basically saying, I'll keep it light. I won't bring the other guy in this, but that you are not significant. And I'm sitting here being like, the whole Epstein thing happening right now that is directly affecting potentially the midterms of the presidency is because Mike Cernovich filed a lawsuit and was investigating and uncovering this stuff. It's like everybody expects you to be on X 24/7 filming videos so they can see your face. Otherwise, you're not doing any work. But and that's why I think that's why we reached out to you. We want to talk to you about what's going on right now, because I think you make a really good point. So we'll bring it back to Massey, Rand Paul, even Pam Bondi. You made a really good point with Massey. Why don't they bring in, I mean, look, if they're not going to bring in you, they could bring in Acosta or any of these investigators or prosecutors. They could bring in Comey's daughter and have them testify and give statements, but they're not doing anything. It's like they're basically, all we're getting is publish the files or don't. And even among the influencer base and the regular people, I think there's a serious oversight, and perhaps we should all be calling for congressional hearings alongside the release of these files, so we can actually have people be forced to testify about what happened.
Members of Congress should do members of Congress things, which is subpoena witnesses, get people under oath, hold hearings, obtain information that can only be obtained from law enforcement sources. We don't need Thomas Massey tweeting out, release the Epstein files. Okay, cool, bro. Cool story, bro. Last I checked, you were in Congress. DC Drano can do that. Tim can do that. Posobiec can. I can. We got that covered, brother. We got it covered. We don't need another guy on Twitter saying we got to release these files and post some pictures. Do things that are congressional. And then you say, well, why didn't any? And this is why, if you're looking at it from Trump's perspective, you would say, man, why didn't? Because remember, Republicans had the House for a couple of years during the Biden regime for 2 years. Yep. So don't tell me, oh, well, we couldn't get anything done. So if you're Trump, all you're hearing is, oh, there's lies about me in these files. The people who hate me, Hakeem Jeffries and Massey, are now saying we need to release these files. Obviously, this is some kind of Russiagate thing directed at me, even though Trump's wrong on the facts of it. If again, that's where people who watch your show and other shows on Twitter, people forget, like, you got 1,000 things going on for 1,000 things going on if you're the president, 1,000 things if you're Pam Bondi going on.
Well, why?
And if you're us, you can have only one thing going on.
Why? This is what I can't wrap my head around, is why they're handling it so poorly, right? So there's a report now out of Mediaite saying that Trump's aides and allies are going to go silent. They said, we're going to stop talking about it so it goes away. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, why would you publicly announce this? Why would you mishandle the PR around this in the first place? If Dan Bongino came out on day one and simply said, guys, it's an ongoing investigation, I wish I could tell you more, that would be the end of it. So what are they doing?
I think there are people in the White House communications team who are way too worried about the Israel angle, way more, because I've looked at things left, right, and center, and I even got called a Mossad show, which is like pretty funny for anybody remotely familiar with my body of work. I'm just like, there's no way Israel could run this without our intelligence agencies being a part of it. That's just not how things work. But there's like a weird psyop where, like, Mark Levin, who was talking about the Epstein files a year ago, is now, well, you can't talk about it anymore. So I think they got psyoped by the, oh, this is really going to damage Israel angle. And then they're pressing Trump to not talk about it because they're worried about that angle, which is, of course, only making things worse. I mean, the reaction, I'm not one to talk about Zoomer gossip like I'm some like cool guy and in touch with things. But the Nelk boys really are getting their butts chewed out because they had Netanyahu on.
Yep.
Dude, I would interview Netanyahu and I would just ask him normal questions and then let other people dissect it, because yelling at people doesn't work. Like, oh, it's a genocide. That doesn't work. That gets you a clip that maybe like Anna Kasparian screaming at peers. Maybe that gets you a clip that your little group likes, but you just look kind of like a lunatic.
Well, here's the hard reality, I guess, is people, there are a lot of smart and good people who are focused, discerning, and want to fix this country and the world. But there's a lot of people who simply want to see symbols of what they feel oppresses them be struck down. And so if you get a video of you berating a liberal, or a liberal gets a video of them berating a conservative, they go viral. But the Nelk boys are getting obliterated for having interviewed Netanyahu, which is, it's crazy to me. I mean, you're supposed to interview people. Is the argument that they have to yell at him the whole time because people hate the guy?
Right. Sure, because it's what you said. People want catharsis. Adam Townsend, I read him a lot. He has a lot of interesting insights. But something that I didn't realize is that, and this is a role that I kind of quit playing for that reason, is there's a false catharsis. So the Nelk boys yelling at Netanyahu is going to go viral, and then that girl on Breaking Points, or woman, whatever, Kyle Kalinski's wife, can
Crystal
ball, based, and you get your click little Nelk boys go off, and you have the thumbnail where they're like, with the big face and everything, and everybody can like churn that content. But that it doesn't accomplish anything at all. But then the viewer feels like, whoo, I got some catharsis. Like, no, catharsis is if you really think the situation's out of control there, then you want the situation to change. Catharsis is not, that's what the false catharsis comes in, is, whoo, I got this big resolution. It's like, no, you just got a hit of dopamine and nothing else. But that's what the audience wants.
So a lot of people believe, we had Dan Bongino on Timcast IRL a year or two ago, and he said many believe that Epstein is some Middle Eastern intelligence. Everybody in the comments starts laughing, like, Middle Eastern, bro. It's like, come on. The insinuation is that he was working for or with Mossad. Do you not see any possibility of that? I mean, could it be that he was working with U.S. intelligence and tangentially with Mossad?
It would have to be a joint operation. So this is all my gray hairs. What I'm trying to do, and that's why I get yelled at by the pro-Israel side and the very hardcore anti-Israels, I'm trying to help people just have a well-rounded approach to these things. So if you're just calling him Mossad, so first of all, Eric Weinstein has said that it might have been Mossad. So if Eric Weinstein is saying that, then obviously the powers that be are not afraid of that being a talking point. So you would just say, well, that's like, Eric poses no threat to the regime or existing power structure at all. And he'll let you say it's Mossad, and he'll even go down that rabbit hole. So maybe the Mossad angle is the limited hangout, which is frankly what I believe, which enrages the anti-Israel people. Because like, oh, you're a it's like, no, I think the limited hangout is that it's Mossad. That's the limited hangout.
Can you define limited hangout for those that don't know what that means?
Limited hangout is when you release a little bit of information to distract people from the bigger picture, and you want everybody to focus on that one piece of information and think that is the complete puzzle rather than a piece of the puzzle. And intelligence operatives love to let you think that you're on to something big to keep you distracted.
I talked about this with Pizzagate. When these WikiLeaks files these emails get released, you see a couple that are strange. One is Barack Obama ordered $30,000 worth of pizza and hot dogs. And then there was another one saying there was a handkerchief with a map on it. And what ends up happening is with the release of all these emails, you get all this information released at once. Then comes a few select posts on social media claiming that certain words mean certain things. And it took that story and threw it off in a faraway direction, which is classic spycraft. My argument was, they probably uncovered, a lot of the emails probably showed that politicians were doing hardcore drugs and had hookers. And what they did was the intelligence agencies, the spies, say, we need these people to sound like lunatics So they do the limited hangout. They release a little bit of information that turns the conspiracy theory into psychobabble. And then no one actually can track down what was really going on.
Or they and what they did with that was so brilliant because, or they made it about something that we weren't even talking about, and then an event happens there that makes it so we can't talk about anything now.
Yep.
Because we were talking about for people who are new, I always just say, has any time in your life someone emailed you to say that you left a handkerchief with a map on it? Right? What are we, the Goonies? And there's a treasure map on it. Get real here. But nobody even knows about that unless you're deep in lore and you watch people like Ian and you and a few other people. So everybody thinks that it was about the lie, which is not what we were even talking about. But by that lie becoming so salacious and whatnot, it made it so that we couldn't talk about the dominoes. Who says I was playing dominoes on cheese? Can somebody explain that to me? I never.
My first thought was that they were basically saying doing drugs with hookers, and they're using coded language. So there's another fascinating element to this limited hangout play, and that is retroactive reputation damage. So they'll release a story and a hashtag. The best example is probably alt-right. So the phrase alt-right was being used back in like 2017 by a lot of people to generally mean new conservatives that opposed the Republican establishment. Once enough people were saying that they were alt-right, the corporate press then put out a statement through the AP that alt-right means you're a white nationalist who wants a country for white people and to remove immigrants. Then they go back to past tweets and alter the context to say, look at this conservative personality who admitted they were a white supremacist. So they can do that with all of these campaigns. And, to bring it back to the news and what we're talking about with Trump and these files, there is as it pertains to the point you're making about Mossad, I think you make a good point, and we've mentioned this last time, that they allow you to say it, they want you to say it, maybe it's a limited hangout, and then you see how fervent people get over the issue of Israel. It's almost like the blinders turn on and they can't assess things critically that, sure, you can criticize Israel, it's fine, but are there other factors at play that you're being blinded to by not paying attention to the bigger picture?
Yeah, I always ask what are they letting me talk about, right? That's the big question that we should always look to as investigators. The dog that doesn't bark. What dog isn't barking and why isn't the dog? For people who never read that Sherlock Holmes story, they saw the expression comes in from they're trying to figure out who broke in and who was an intruder. And then they ask, well, did the dog bark? The dog didn't bark. Oh, that's how you knew it was an inside job. Yep. Right. So you're always thinking what dog isn't barking. And so when I hear everybody can say it's Mossad, I could tweet right now it's Mossad, and I would have the usual pro-Israel people mad at me, but they're always mad at me for something. But then the anti-Israel people would love me all of a sudden. Yeah, Mike, you're finally truth-telling and everything. So that tells me that it's probably the royal family. It's something above them. I believe there's we got real. We've talked about this before. I think there's something above what we're allowed to see, or maybe it's dark and below. And I agree. Those are what we can't talk about. Yeah, we can't, for example, if you talk about, even though every religion, Islam, Judaism, they call them different things. So Muslims call them jinn. Every religion believes in a supernatural, and every religion believes in angels and demons. But if you say, I think that there are people acting at the behest of demons, you can't talk about, you're a Looney Tunes. Yeah. It's like, well, wait a minute. You go to church or temple or mosque, and you pray for angels to intercede for you, and you pray to God and Allah, and you believe demons are real. But if I say that humans are interacting with demons, I can't say that, but I can say Mossad. I think you make a good point with what do you call it? Superstructure or something above what we perceive. It doesn't. It could be supernatural. I believe in. I believe we've not even yet begun to discover the true nature of reality. It's very, very minimal. Right. But even if it's not, and it doesn't need to be, for those that are more, of modern sensibilities and they don't want to believe that stuff, it's fairly simple that there would be a power structure that doesn't want you to know what it's doing. And some we know the name of and some we don't. I've described it like we are chickens in a chicken coop. And what I mean by that is I got chickens and I literally do not care about their day-to-day business. They can act like that hen is in charge and that rooster's in charge and I don't know or care.
I go in every day, I take their eggs from them, and so long as they produce, their politics mean nothing to me. But you know what happens? When some of the chickens start fighting, what do? We don't go in there and mediate. We don't negotiate. We put plastic blinders over their eyes. Not a joke. We put blinders over their eyes so they can't see each other anymore, and it stops them from fighting. So I think there's a strong probability there are power structures that we can't see. That's why it seems like every time a new politician gets in, they fall in line with certain policies that we all are mad about, because the actual power structures want their eggs. They want the product of the labor, and they don't care about what you and I are talking about. And so you make a good point about Mossad. They let you say certain things. But when Donald Trump got impeached, if you even typed the name Eric Ciaramella on any social platform, they would delete that instantly without notice. Now that was weird.
Yeah, and it was to such a degree that MAGA people don't even know that I was the one who broke that story about Eric Ciaramella way before
you weren't allowed
he was
to.
the so-called whistleblower. People are like, because you couldn't even say it.
Yep.
And again, that goes to what are you not being allowed to talk about, and why is that? And then of course, I sort of believe that we could be. I don't want to believe it, but sometimes I believe in my darker moments that we're just an energy farm, and that's why we're programmed to reproduce, and that's why it's so much harder to love than to hate.
Chickens in a chicken coop.
Yeah. So I go down there, but even if you don't go supernatural and you only look at, like I always tell people, I don't know what the Federal Reserve does. I know I can tell you what they tell us they do, right? I know the official story. Nobody here, and then I know people in Wall Street, and then I find out how the Federal Reserve really works. And you go, oh no, they just give money to these hedge funds at 0% interest.
Yep.
And let them do whatever they want with it. And these hedge funders then come on Twitter like they're geniuses. Financial, that's why they're also mad at Tucker, because Tucker's been talking more about high finance and how it really works. So you don't have to go to where I am. I would just say people, hey, what's the discount window with the Federal Reserve, and how does that work?
Let me just, the last few minutes we got here, as I use this analogy, yours is more like we are an energy farm, whatever. I use the analogy of the chickens in a coop. But what happens when your chickens stop producing and you can't get them under control? You cull the flock.
Right.
Do you think there's a possibility that if there is some kind of superstructure that, say, Donald Trump gets into office and says, we're going to fix this, and then they basically tell him, if you do anything out of line, we'll purge humanity. We'll wipe the farm and start fresh. We will flood the earth, or something to that effect.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, look at what World War II happened to World War II, right? And World War I, and then you start to look into the lending practices happening in World War I, and you look at that's also why the Mossad angle kind of annoys me. Is if you look at the sinking of ships and everything, there's no like Mossad to blame on that.
Yeah,
that's just white Anglo-Saxon Protestants doing that. And because there's even a video going around where like, oh yeah, Cernovich is saying it's anti-Semitic to say it's Mossad, and if you watch the full video, it's no, I'm saying that false flags were happening in white Anglo-Saxon America. So if you have this unusual, or even if you look at the 9/11 conspiracy theories, even if you accepted one part of it, you would still have to accept the Carlyle Group, George H.W. Bush, who was working with the Mexicans and oil interests. And people get really mad when you bring that up. Or if you want to talk about open borders, you have to talk about Catholic charities. No, but they don't want to hear that, though. They don't want to hear about how the Pope is openly open borders, and the Pope before that was open. They only want to hear about what they can say about Jews and the Jews and everything. Whereas what I'm trying to do, and I don't think I'm winning, I think I'm losing badly on this, so I'll admit that, is I'm trying to say if you take a well-rounded approach, groups are acting in all sorts of ways. Multiple groups are, and that would be the case with Epstein.
I think what's going to happen, we're already watching this trend. Long-form content is starting to weaken, and it's being replaced by these short-form TikTok shorts, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. I think the strategy from the elite is the reason why Trump won't ban TikTok, get everybody hyper-focused on random static noise, and they will never be focused enough to interfere with our objectives. I think that's where we're headed right now, culturally.
Yeah, they play on you emotionally in a short bit, because I've programmed an algorithm to be really bad, and I'm like, thank God I'm almost 50, because if I were in my 20s, had a crummy apartment, a crummy job, was overweight from all this GMO food stuff, hormonally dysregulated. You're trying to date, but they're flying out to Dubai and getting what done to them. I'd be like, dude, I would be mad. I would really be mad. And whereas I watch it, I'm only slightly annoyed.
Yeah. Well, Mike, you raise a good point. Next time I speak with, say, Massey or Rep Khanna, if we reach out to him relatively often, especially on this stuff, I'm going to ask him exactly that. Why don't they bring people in for testimony, bring the investigators, bring the prosecutors, bring people like you in to go over the research and actually discuss this in the public light instead of, it's a good point, release the documents. Mike Johnson won't do it. Then Trump says don't. And so you get talking points and nothing actually ends up happening. So I will do that. In the meantime, where can people find you?
Twitter, X, Cernovich. X marks the spot, Cernovich.
Right on, man. I really do appreciate you joining and talking about your views on this, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Have a go, man. All right. Mike Cernovich, of course, he broke the story. He cracked it wide open. I will say, I'm much more interested in talking about the superstructure systems. Let's just put it this way. A lot of people are going to say, I don't care for supernatural. Okay, it's fine. You don't have to. I don't like the word supernatural because you're basically just saying something we haven't discovered yet. If it exists, it exists. If it's reality, it's reality. If there is a spectrum beyond what we can perceive, and there is, it's called the electromagnetic spectrum. But if there's another one, why would we call it magic? Maybe you can influence things with your mind. I have no idea. But the point is, if it exists, and we have not discovered everything. But let's just say you're of modern sensibilities and you're like, I don't believe in aliens or whatever. And it's like, okay, fine. Why would there not be powerful individuals who don't want you to know who they are? I'll give you one final story. I was hanging out at the casino. Hey, I like to play poker. And I was talking with one of the VIP liaisons. They said a guy comes in. He burns like $15 million a year gambling. He's got two young ladies. He gives them each $5 million to lose. They don't make the money. They literally just spend 10 grand a hand, lose the money, and then laugh and walk out. And I'm thinking to myself, who? Who is this guy? Like, who are these people that have money like that where they literally don't care to lose $25 million in 1 year gambling? It's strange, isn't it? An old guy with that much money has a lot of influence and power in this world, and you don't even know his name. Aren't there going to be people like that you've never heard of with tremendous power? I'm not talking about cults or cabals or magic. I'm literally just talking about rich people you've never heard of. Bezos wants you to know who he is. Who are the guys out there that don't? No idea. But I'm going to wrap it there, my friends. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. We're going to gear up for that raid on Russell Brand, who is going live. I believe he should be live right now. He usually is. Give a shout out to Russell Brand, who is live now, as well as Steven Crowder in the Mug Club. I always want to just stress it every time I can. Guys, it is incredible that through this Rumble morning lineup, this worldview that we live in has become the mainstream. There's a lot of big news behind the scenes that I can't talk about, but I want you guys to really, I want to stress and I want you to understand this. The corporate press is capitulating. Barry Weiss's The Free Press is apparently going around trying to get $250 million evaluation for a sale of her outlet. Anti-woke. Now, the Free Press is certainly not, hardcore MAGA, but it defied the corporate press. I can tell you on our end, we've got organizations basically telling us, corporate press, you've won. How can we do a deal? And we are laughing all the way to the bank. This is it. This fake narrative machine that tried to play politics has failed. Woke is broke, and the big companies are coming around and saying, what do we have to do? Now, it's not everybody. CBS just put $1.5 billion into South Park to insult Trump and claim he's got a little wiener. How stupid. But there are big companies now realizing that has lost, and people are clamoring for something reasonable. So we're winning. And I'm going to say it's largely because a lot of you guys who watch, you share these videos, you watch the whole morning lineup. We now dominate the top 10 news broadcasts in the world on Rumble, as well as generally the top 10 of all live streams. We're in a down period for news because we're in an off cycle politically, but still, the Rumble live streams are dominating the top live streams in the world, and big interest, powerful interest are taking notice that they've lost. And instead of saying we're going to wither away and die, they're saying we want to catch your train before it leaves the station. And you know what that means? It means we have the leverage. So thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned. More to come tonight, 8 p.m. Timcast IRL, and we'll see y'all then.